Hello, 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 and welcome to the Birthright podcast. My name is Taylor, and I am your soul sister on this journey into the real talk of what I believe is our birthright to know. Here on this podcast, we talk about everything from relationships and hormones and cycles and seasons, really everything that the modern woman needs to know who wants to remember the ancient ways. It's coming back to the village, sharing stories, and that's exactly what we're doing today on this episode, where I have the pleasure of speaking with a dear friend of mine, Sophia Efremova. Sophia is a coach, a facilitator, and a speaker on women's wellness and feminine embodiment. She helps women to break ancestral patterns that keep showing up over and over again in their life, and her story, oh my gosh, her story really blew my mind and makes total sense to me of why she does the work that she does based on her lived experience, which makes her just 1000% qualified to be doing so. She has gone through being a crazy, reckless partier to a firefighter to fully finding her feminine and connecting to her cycle and helping other women. It's really a fascinating story, and I've enjoyed our conversation. So please enjoy this conversation with Sophia. Hello, 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 and so excited to welcome Sophia Efremova to the Birthright podcast today. Did I get it right?
I got it right. Thanks, Taylor.
Yeah, amazing. Well, I'm so excited to have you on as just a fellow sister navigating the world of wanting and desiring so deeply to help women. So I am so excited to dive into your story today because I know it's one that's been filled with many transformations and many changes. We share a lot of similarities in our background, one being that we have a little party monster inside of us. And I would love to just start there. If you want to go back into your younger days and just paint the picture for what the Sophia, 20 years ago or 15 years ago actually looked like.
Mm. Well, yeah, thanks, Taylor. And I'm really excited to dive in today. I've been on a transformational journey just like yourself. I've gotten to watch you just online, and it's been two kindred spirits. Feels
Hmm.
apt. I'm really excited about diving in. So I appreciate the question. As I think about how we have this similarity with our party girl, I'm like looking back and I'm like, that little party girl was started like way, 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 way back by being raised by a burner dad, actually. So
Mm.
my father's from the Soviet Union. I don't know how he found out about Burning Man, when we first moved here from, the early 90s, late 2000s or early 2000s from Moscow. And my father must have seen it in a magazine, and he starts going every year as I'm a child, like little itty bitty baby.
Wow.
And my childhood, I remember him coming back every year covered in dust, just he's a little spacey. And my brother and I grew up listening to psychedelic trance music. That was like our childhood music. We didn't listen to Disney, we didn't watch Disney. It was all trance. And my dad kept his DJ decks in my bedroom. And it was like
Wow.
burner-esque style. And so as I grew up, I went through high school, early years, and my dad was right there with us. He was like the bouncer for our parties and like facilitating the cool vibes from a very early age. So I've always loved
Wow.
dancing, music, and I remember getting the best compliment from my father at like 15 when I threw one of my parties, and he's like, "I always knew you were the little raver." So I'm proud of you.
With the accent too. That's
So
amazing.
we grew up in inner city Baltimore when we moved here, and childhood in Baltimore was, and then with like a Russian father who he loved to play, and my brother and I. didn't have a whole lot of guardrails, I would say. And so we were the popular kids in school that could like throw the parties because our parents
Mm.
were just a little bit lax about that. And I even ended up dating a boy in high school that he got into DJing, and then we started throwing parties after that movie Major Rager came out. Major Rager, whatever. There's like a Project X. That's it. Our party
Oh yeah, yeah.
Major
I
Rager.
remember that. Uh-huh.
We threw these parties that then like blew up. Like we were charging like $5 a head. We'd make thousands of dollars, and like
Whoa.
we then had like these big giant fields. We'd sell like VIP passes, and we'd sell like bartender passes. We're all like 16. People would drive up full of trucks with a bunch of beer, sell a beer for like $5, just madness. We had people from state
Holy
lines
smokes.
crossing. We were 16 and just throwing these insane, insane big parties.
Oh my God. You were a professional partier.
I'm
Like,
sure I would like to call it that because we got a laminating machine. So we were
yeah.
professional.
That the ultimate, yeah, sign of a professional for sure.
For sure. Yeah. So that was my
Wow.
early years was just like playing and drinking and running around outside because Baltimore was it was a wild place, especially like
Wow.
a white being white in Baltimore was like this really interesting I guess like pass at like they didn't say anything about white kids doing anything in Baltimore because Baltimore's a
Mhm.
60% black city. So the police focus was there. And so we would be doing ridiculous things. Cops would interact with us and just let us on by. I was
Wow.
driving around without a license, drunk sometimes. Like it's just a very crazy Wild West stuff that was happening over there. No one cared about the white kids. It
Wow.
totally like didn't blink an eye. Bad night.
Oh my gosh. There's,
It
like,
was
so many little, threads that we could pull on there. One having, a father who grew up in the Soviet Union who was going to Burning Man. It's just like, I haven't heard that story before, so that's really, really wild. You brought up, the importance of play, which is something I just want to tug on for just a second because I think play is one of the most important things as adults, and it's interesting, I feel like a lot of people just forget about play in their adult life, but I'm just curious, do you feel like your experience playing so much when you were a teenager that you have carried that in different ways into your life as an adult and the importance of it?
I've as you asked that question, to me, I didn't feel as though that was the most conducive for my childhood. It was unstructured.
Mhm.
I think about those times and it just um there wasn't structure. There was a lot of play and it led to this is not about a blame or shame, but there was just so much like allowance for me to do whatever I wanted. And I took that with like some of my troubled, upbringing. It was just a lot of chaos in our lives. There was
Yeah.
just
Mm.
Baltimore is the number two murder capital in the country. It's got crack and heroin, and I had lost a lot of friends to heroin and those sorts of things. Like, so then having a, a what is it? Abusive household and then not having any structure, like to me, play was like it was all escape. I was just like running
Mm.
around like a total maniac because I mean, I was using that as an outlet to escape just like the hell that was home. So like I
Okay.
called it play, but it was all just like kids being able to do whatever they wanted and we were just like unruly.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mhm. Wow. What do you think that version of you was really seeking out of all that? Was it freedom? Was it power? Like, was it just sovereignty?
I never really thought that I'd live past 18.
Wow, really?
Yeah, it was that was never a question to me. I very early on at the age of I think I was like 13 or 14 when I first had sex and I'm going to say this on a podcast, but I was diagnosed with an STD at my first time ever having sex from this
Mhm.
kid, and he then told all of Baltimore, like
Oh my
told
gosh.
everybody. And so at a young, very young age, everybody knew. And so for me, it was like I was completely worthless and not lovable. I was just damaged from that point forward. And that was like the earliest age of like, I like boys and school and high school. My body is changing. And then home is hell. Now everybody thinks that I'm dirty. And so everybody's saying that. And so to me, it was just like, I didn't care about anything. I didn't care
Mm.
about anything. And there was just, I didn't have anywhere to go really. So I
Mhm.
just drank. I just did whatever because it was like I saw everybody else was like getting ready for college and this and that. And it just like that was just never an option in my eyes.
Yeah.
So I was in and out of the hospital, just like wafting. It was such a strange several years of just like, why is everybody else planning for things? Like, yeah. So I think about
Yeah.
those times of just like, I mean, they are such a core foundation of who I am now because of just like it was yeah, the toughest years of my life. Nothing has ever come close to that. And I'm so just like
Wow.
shocked that I made it through. I mean, to think that later it actually ended up being, I'll fast forward, but it actually ended up being a false test. I didn't find out till I was 24. And so after 2 suicide attempts, I remember thinking when I found out that it wasn't real, just like how it was just like this anger that I had with the system,
Mm.
like set me up to failure with like an abusive home and then this false diagnosis, nowhere to run, no structure for like how to support a
Right.
little girl getting a diagnosis of herpes. Just like, what do I do? And so I just was left to my own devices and I just wreaked havoc. I mean, I made my mother's life hell. I was just
Mm.
this really angry, angry, angry 16-year-old girl that was just like, nothing matters because nothing did. Nothing
Wow.
mattered at that time.
To know who you are now and to know that this was what was laying the foundation, I'm just like, wow, I'm like hanging on to my seat. I mean, I can't imagine navigating. I had a party lifestyle when I was in my teenage years too. I also lost my virginity at 13. But like I had a really great experience and the boy, he was so loving and so caring. And so I'm just thinking about all of that fuel that's adding to the flame of being a teenager and how hard it already is if you didn't have any of those things, right, with our hormones like going nuts and going crazy, and then to have all of those external factors added in. And now for you to be able to talk about it and to like own that part of your story and to not have shame around it. I'm so curious of like that journey of like, well, was that a process for you to actually go back into those years and to kind of relive them and think about them in a way that you can talk about them and share them? I'm curious what that was like for you to get to this point where you can speak about it so so freely and so openly.
Mm. I think, you know, I've been more recently in a deep dive on just consistent personal development that I now know that those were all things that, you know, happened to me. They do not define the woman that I
Yeah.
am. I mean, if they were to, it was just the forging of who it is that I am and what I'm capable of holding. Um, I You know, I wouldn't say that I went back and did any sort of kind of detailed, "Okay, now I need to go over this and
Mhm.
that," but I think a culmination of all the things that I've done over the last few years just helped me understand so much more. Um, and I would say for me to be able to speak on it now, I would say I think it only comes from the solidity of who I am, how much I really value the type of woman I am today, what I know I'm
Mhm.
capable of. Um, Coming from a genuine place of self-worth, and I never would have been able to have that conversation back then because I never really had much of that foundation.
Yeah.
That took building that. It took being
Right.
loved, it took loving myself and, like, seeing that there's love out there, you know,
Right.
available, just an abundance of that for me.
Yeah. I mean, what was the journey of transitioning away from that lifestyle? Was there a specific moment where you're like, "Something has to change here?" Or
Mm.
yeah, can you walk us through what the turning point was into the next version of you? Because I know even the next version after that was still, like, not who we're talking to today, so
Yeah. I will say the transition from that girl into just the version of me that just started being okay was just falling in love for the first time.
Mm,
6
mhm.
and I fell in love with this boy named Billy, and he just he and I were like kindling a little romance, and I remember thinking like he's gonna find out and he's going to leave me. He's gonna just desert me. And I remember him saying I remember telling him I liked him and that he probably wouldn't like me back because I have a secret to tell him. And he was just like, I already know. And it just like, I just remember now like how okay I was all of a sudden that like I was like worthy of someone to love me. And we fell madly in love and he just loved every ounce of me.
Shout out to Billy.
Yeah. Yeah. And it just washed away all of that
Mm,
part of my life. I just never looked back. Like the suicidal, the angry, the all of that. I just got to fall in love and see how worthy I was of that, and that was it. And
mm,
he like I forever owe him. I owe him everything for him to see that he loved me so deeply as kids. Um,
yeah.
and so to answer your question, I would say that was that piece. But by the time I was 17, I graduated high school early because I had jumped around. I went to multiple high schools. And I finally went to my mother and I was like, I'm either dropping out or we get to find out a way for me to get out. And so we found a program that could finish high school early so I could just get out of Dodge. And so I signed up. I found out about AmeriCorps. I learned that there's this national, like a Peace Corps, but domestic. It's like you go and do service work
Mm,
around the
mhm.
country. I found out about it, signed up as soon as I can, and they just hiked me to Vinton, Iowa. I got training and I started working for FEMA, and I just got sent all around the country to do disaster work.
Wow.
So that's what I was doing for the next. I was doing disaster work for basically the next like decade or so because of that. I was like
Wow.
out of Baltimore, and I basically never turned back.
Wow, no looking back. Do you feel like that was gave you kind of the structure and just some more of the you mentioned, kind of not having any guardrails going up and just totally being unstructured. Did that era give you a little bit more of like a frame to kind of belong into and to build yourself on?
Totally. And I even back then, I was really strongly considering military because I love like structure and time and uniform and all of the rules. I was like, I want it, but I don't want to go to war. So
Yeah.
I found AmeriCorps, which was it's a federally funded program. So you have like, the ranks, you have uniform, you have muster, you have PT, you have like all the things, but you're not going to go, to war. So I
Yeah.
loved my AmeriCorps years. I mean, that was the like if I were to say if there's one thing that I like would recommend to any young person, trying to figure something out, it would be AmeriCorps or something like this.
Mm.
It was everything. I didn't need to pay for anything. They just shipped me off. I do a year of service and then they would give me $6,000 for education grants. So I would go serve, I'd go see the country, I'd get training. I would be given job opportunities for different nonprofits, on site where I was working. And it was everything that I needed in that chapter to just yank me out of my environment and have
Mhm.
me work with like say like 100 people within our cohort. So then you'd meet all these people from everywhere. And, I would travel the whole country. I learned about budgeting because they give us these meager portions of money for rations for food. And we'd have to like pull them together to do budgeting and, the whole military experience. I wouldn't say military, but it was very like federally funded program where you get $3.50 a day for food, so you'd pull it together with all your other classmates and then budget it out a month in advance. So we'd go to like the budget
Wow.
stores and get we'd have to like really plan everything out. And so then we get, a hurricane in, say, Jersey. There was the hurricane, I forget the name of it. It's my first one, but we'd ship all over the country. We'd show up and we start mucking and gutting roofs, and just that's what I needed to be doing at that time, was just
Mhm.
being like out working, serving, and out of here, because this was just the hellhole for me back home. I
Mm.
was stuck
Right. Right. So you kind of went from one side of the spectrum to another, with, total unstructure, just free for all, into like, I know exactly what I'm doing every day. There's a very clear path here. There's a budget. Like, there's all the things. So I'm curious, how did it come to now what you're doing with I feel like you're so embodied. Like, it's funny that you just mentioned, that AmeriCorps brought you out of your head. And I'm just curious what that process has been like for you, since transitioning away from AmeriCorps. Because when did you leave AmeriCorps?
I did it on and off upward till 2018, I'd say.
Okay.
And then that's when I stepped in and I started because I was a career firefighter for the Forest Service, did wildland firefighting, and then I was at San Diego City Fire Department. So I was just more structured,
Wow.
more.
Wow. Holy shit. Were you the only woman?
Mhm.
What was that like?
Um, Unbelievable. I'm up in the Forest Service when I worked with them, Station 51, Vista Grand. I was the only woman. I may still be the only woman in history that had worked there.
Wow.
Probably, I'll ask them. But at the time when I first applied, my captain, Captain Alagi, he saw my resume and he reached out and he's like, "Hey, I know that you applied. Like, you've got EMT, you've got trail building experience." So I had like more experience than some of these other, dudes that were applying.
Right.
And he was like, whenever you're ready, we'll take your application. We'll have you come up. And my understanding, or as I learned later, he had a little girl, and he girl dad, and so he had this whole talk with, there was our station had the engines, with all the water pumps and whatnot, and then we had a hotshot crew, which is 20 dudes. Hotshot crews are the ones that are like the first in the fire. They'll helicopter them out to like remote areas. They're the most like intense, muscle of firefighters. So we housed 20 of them, the leadership crew and the engine crew. I was on the engine crew. And apparently, right before I got there, he had a whole like, "Hey, anybody bats an eye at this girl, like your ass is mine." And so he had a
Wow.
conversation with them, came in, and it was like a brotherhood. They took care of me. Like, I came in as a rookie, and so like naturally I'm not going to be, like the best of the best, but they were really clear, like, we are only as strong as you. So you get to meet yourself up to our standards. And so they put me up through all the training. I'm like right there running with them every day, but it was just rugged work, and I kept up. I came back the next season. I'm like cutting my run times in half. I'm like adding more of the weights, and I was holding up as my own. And it was, I would say that was like my favorite part of my career, was working at that fire station. I had a few promotions there, being sent on assignments all around the country doing, big campaign fires, 70,000 acre fires, and, sleeping out in the woods, 16-hour work days, months at a time. Just
Wow.
unbelievable, just adrenaline junkie, fun, stinky boys hiking all day, and just like fire ripping across my face, burning my hair, like ripping chainsaws, and
Wow.
I had so much fun. So it was a beautiful experience. There was a lot of like, the Me Too movement was like happening around, like right before I'd gotten there in the Forest Service. And there was whisperings, because it's very old school. It's a
Right.
very old school environment, but my experience with my captain and what the safety net that they created there, I best years of my life. So some of those, of just like so much fun, of what I could find out, like what I was capable of, to be able to do
Yeah.
that.
Wow. Yeah, I'm just sitting here like in amazement, because I'm just thinking about all of the things that you would learn about yourself putting yourself into an environment like that where you're the only woman, where there's actual physical danger associated with it. I'm like, I had a corporate software sales job for like 8 years. Like, I was not in any danger. And I'm just thinking about the stories that you have and the relationships that you built, doing those types of things and learning what you're capable of. I mean, what did you learn during that time that you're capable of?
I have this really funny story. There was this fire that we were sent on. There's a bunch of details, but I'll condense it. But I was trying out for the first time a diva cup because I needed to figure out a way to like support myself. Like, because when you go on a fire, like you're out there, you could be out there for a week. If you're sitting at
Okay.
the fire station, they're like, boom, it's time to go. So sure enough, we get like whisperings that there's something sprouting on the other side of the hill. We're probably going to get sent to it. It's in our district. And then I was like, okay, before we go, I need to make sure I need to go dump this thing and figure out like this whole Diva Cup situation. We had one bathroom in the whole station for all 50 of us or whatever. So captain's like, go get your stuff. It's time to get up on the rig. And I was like, okay, 1 minute. I ran to the bathroom and I go to grab my cup and I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. And I just like struggle to get it out, Taylor, and it comes out and it just sprays everywhere.
No.
It gets everywhere. And I was like, as there's like blood all over the floor and the tones are going off and they're like, boo, boo, boo,
Oh
boo, boo,
my
Efremov.
God.
I was like, oh my God. So I just like, I'm like, whatever, it's whatever it has to be. So I'm like wiping it all down. And then I grabbed a handful of paper towels and I just stick them in my uniform shorts and my pants. And I get out, I jump on the rig and I'm sitting next to this other rookie, this kid, and he's like asking, he's like, go ahead and put in the coordinates to the radio or whatever it was. And I was like, I don't know how to do it. And he's like rolling his eyes at me. He's like, he's rookie, this girl. And so we get out there to the fire and it's just this straight shot up this mountain. And so as we get out of the rig, we have to go carry out the hose. So I take my 50-pound hose pack and another one. So I've got like easily 150 pounds on my back. We start going up and the kid who's rolling his eyes at me, he just goes pow, like out. He like can't keep up. I go and I'm like beating everybody in the thing. I'm bleeding through my pants, just like rah! And all night I'm like holding a
Wow.
nozzle, ripping through fire, and that was my peak moment as a woman in fire of this kid.
Oh my God.
Just bleeding all over my pants, and I got like the just a
Oh, wow.
straight fist bump to Captain Olagi when I saw him later that night, and he's just like, "All right."
Wow. You need to have AI like create an image of that. I feel like got your bloody uniform on, like holding the hose, fighting a fire.
Oh, the
That is
smile
wild.
on my face, I'm like, I'm covered in dirt and ash, and I'm like, at that point, it doesn't matter if it's blood, sweat, poop, or tears, whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm just the little jingle. Anything you can do, I can do bleeding. I'm just like, I do
Wow.
that.
Okay. I mean, well, I'm so glad that you brought that up because now on your social media, I mean, it's really what's been catching my attention. Like you've been blowing up talking about periods, or as you like to put it, just yapping about periods. And I'm just like, yes, I love the authenticity and the realness that you bring to it. I'm just curious, did you have any real relationship to your cycle back when you were doing that? Like,
None.
or was it none? Okay.
Yeah, no, nothing. At a
Okay.
very early age, I was placed on birth control just because, you heard my childhood background. It was like, ooh, you should go on birth control. So it was just,
Yeah.
so I had been on hormonal birth control most of my life. And so it was just like, cool, shut it down. Didn't have a cycle for a long time. Like that was my experience with my vagina, my period. And like no one talked to me about that. No one talked to me about
Yeah.
sex. No one talked to me about periods. I thought that when you put in a tampon the first time I ever used it was like a hot dog. Do you know what I mean? Like a hot dog.
Tell me more.
So, okay, your vagina kind of looks like the buns of a hot dog.
Yeah, yeah.
Place the tampon, just lay it down. That's what I
Oh, yeah, yeah,
that was my
yeah,
experience
yeah.
with tampon. So
Okay.
to put it lightly, I didn't know what I was doing for a long
Yeah.
time. And so
Oh,
when it came to firefighting and stuff, no, it was just like and I'll say with like the women in fire, um, I like it, it's a really interesting niche of person is like women in fire because it's like a very um obviously very male dominated, but the women that are in the scene there, how do I even explain that? It's like we don't talk about our womenness. I felt like
right.
like no, you keep up, and we don't get any special handouts, which I agree. It's like this is a job. It's not about like the notoriety. I get to do the exact type. Like I'm not doing any kind of different tests to be here. So when I was going through San Diego City Fire Department, when I was going through the Forest Service, all of the credentials I had to get, they're not different because I'm a different gender. So I appreciate that, and it's like it didn't feel like there was just this space for us to speak
Yeah.
about like how kind of wild it was to be in that field as a woman.
Yeah. Totally wild. I mean, it's your chapters have been so definitive of having the fully unstructured, like professional partying into AmeriCorps, into firefighting, and then was there a natural transition away from that? Because I know some firefighters that I feel like they do it forever. Like my
Mm,
dad's best friend was a firefighter and he got like the best pension and
yeah.
retirement. And I feel like it can be a pretty sweet gig, if you stay in it for a while. So I'm curious where the transition out of that came from.
I would call that like that was actually what took me into the party scene that, you and I then met each other in
Mhm.
my early mid 20s was how I didn't realize that my childhood I'd only or my time in fire, I think of it as like a recreation of the childhood that I had. I was so used to the chaos and the intensity, so I recreated that in my environment as an adult.
Mm,
And so I
mm,
was just like breathing this, just like I needed this, just the intensity. And by the time I had transitioned out, it was a basically like a catalyst of everything just exploding. Panic attacks. Um, I totally wasn't able to keep up anymore. My body
mhm.
finally caught up. I had broken my knee. My body was just failing. I was
Yeah.
having just so many issues with myself, and I went through this San Diego City Fire Academy. So it took me many years to get through that process, and I was in the San Diego City Fire Academy where, long story short, I didn't make it the day before final testing. I got booted out, and it was like everything in my life had come crashing down at that moment. I had just
Mhm.
been like, this was going to prove that I was worthy. This was going to prove everything, that I was finally worthy, and I wasn't as much of a damaged little girl. Now I can prove it to everybody that I'm actually incredible. And then it got stripped from me. They said, you can
Mm,
do it again. You need to do the academy over. Um,
mm,
and that was crushing. My academy was during the COVID pandemic. So they had actually slashed half of us just because it was a very long story. But I was one of the very few, maybe one of three people that had actually fought live fire on that crew. But it was just this whole thing. And I timed out on a drill. They said, come back, try it again. And I was like, oh my God, after years and years and years and years of this, I can't go through it again. It's like a boot camp. It was
yeah.
weeks of hell. And my body finally was like, we're done. We're done, Sophia. Like the day after, I had even started signing up for the other fire academies. I was going to go to Cal Fire. I was going to do this because my body was just like, next thing. And then I was like, I'm going to heal. I was like, I
Mm.
get to sit down. But then that's when I found out about Burning Man, where like I
Yeah.
followed his footsteps. So I went to the burn for the first year. And then for the next few years, I was channeling that same intensity, but for partying. Like I used
Mhm.
my fire, my fuel towards like having a really good time. And I was very good at it. That was like the funnel. And I didn't know it. I did not see it at the time that it was still more of that chaos collapse and then just completely being detached from myself by like playing with substances and playing with the party. The high peak experiences was just the next firefighting. It was just
Mm.
more and more peak to get me out of my own experience.
Mm. Yeah, and after all that peaking, it's like at some point it all catches up to you, right? Because I know I definitely had that moment of realizing a couple years ago, back in 2023, of having to get really real with myself, of like, I'm actually an addict, and I was also chasing those peak experiences, the disassociated
Mm.
states. My story is obviously much different than yours, from how I found my own intensity. But I think a lot of people listening will be able to resonate with this, of that there's usually that one pattern that no matter what life is dealing you, there's like a way that it can show itself until you really face it, right? And until you really acknowledge it. So, where did you find, or when did you have that aha moment of I'm chasing intensity? How did you even come to see that about yourself?
I would like to think that in the last, 2 years, I've been deep in transformational work. And having been, like, one of my coaches said to me, like, why don't you just try sobriety? And I was like, what? That's interesting feedback. Why would you say that to me?
Try that for intensity.
And I was like, well, that's kind of weird. Like, I was like, that just, it was feedback for me at the time. This was, like 2 years ago. And I was a little bit confused as to why, like, I was being nudged in that direction. But it was somebody that like deeply cared about me. She's a coach of mine. And I tried it for like an extended period of time because, like, ever since I was like 13, there was always something. It was like
Yeah,
cigarettes,
same.
drinking,
Hmm.
something. Because all the 10 years that I was doing the disaster response and fire, it wasn't drugs, but it was plenty of drinking.
Sure.
Um, and so then I thought, like, oh, well, if I'm doing ketamine and GHB at the burn, like, oh, I'm not drinking anymore, like, whatever. I
Hmm.
just swapped it out and then added the peak experiences. So the aha moment was like all of a sudden when I finally had to be with myself. And that was just so confronting. It was so humbling. So, um, it was like a rubber band snap. I like weight gain, just into just being with myself without any reach to get out of the experience. That's when everything was like, oh, I get to rebuild this. I get to rebuild this from a place of wholeness. I rebuild it from a place of like not trying to get anywhere else. And so I did it for 4 months, like almost 2 years ago. That was that humbling period. And then when I came back, when I say back, I mean like I allowed it back in my space. Like then it was like I would have like an experience, a party, and it would just not, it did not feel the same. And I was like, well, now it's actually taking away from the life that I'm building. Like I actually do want family and
Hmm.
like I love my sleep and I love my health and all these things. And then I dated somebody last year who he does a year of whatever and then a year of sobriety every other year. Just cause. I was so inspired by that. I was like, oh, cool, a whole year, I'll do that with you. And I like doing that was just it feels like this feels like a drug. It feels like a drug. Like of
Mm.
like the clarity because for the first time in my life I trust the excitement about things. I trust my channel, my path, because it's not actually built on anything that's outside of myself anymore. I
Yeah.
get excited about things and I'm like, great, this is actually real. This is me, like unfiltered in my raw channel. And it like feels so good to not have to question it because I'm like, oh, was I just being a little manic? No, I'm with myself and I trust myself wholly because of the clarity that I've given myself. That's kind of a
Mm.
place of like, I am so protective of it now.
Hmm.
Before it was like, please, anybody come into my space to distract me.
Mm. Right. I think also as women, we're so, I mean, at least this is something that I'm noticing about myself is that we're so attuned to everyone in our environment. It's really easy to put the needs of others before ourselves, to distract from actually having to sit with ourselves and be with ourselves. And I'd love if you could elaborate for any of the listeners who maybe aren't familiar with what it even means to like be with yourself. Like, how do you actually define that, and how that like actually the process of being with yourself was so transformative for you?
I'd like to think that it comes all the way back to that first story about how everybody else was planning for college and I had no plans for my life, and that it set the tone upwards up until a few years ago, but that like everything was meant to be survived. My whole
Mm,
life was just enough just to get me by, just enough rent, do the thing that pays me so that I can just survive my life. And the transformation that I know that I'm in now, of one in which I am being with myself, is the one in which I am so excited about every single day, that I get to trust myself in order to build something, that I get excited about life, that I know that if I want anything, I can just go and create it
mm,
and just build it, that I can go and have fun and create, and I don't have to endure any single thing anymore to
mm,
survive anything.
mhm.
That's like a very big part of where a lot of people still are. You're vaping, you're scrolling, you're Netflixing, you're sitting at that desk job that you fucking hate, you're surviving it. I
Yeah.
think a lot of people survive a lot of things in their life. I'm surviving the relationship. I'm surviving the way that this, because a lot of the constructs that were set up are not supportive. As me as a woman, you as a woman, the way that like the typical 9 to 5, that's not built for me. It's not built for
Right.
me. And people survive that, just to, they override their system to just get by.
Mm. Oof, girl, you're giving me chills. Totally. I mean, the way that this whole world is structured, it's I mean, when you hear the the term "it's a man's world," I mean, there are so many things that are have just been built. I actually talked about this in my episode about menstrual shame, but about how like our entire workforce and the growth of economy is completely linear, right? It's like it always we're always looking for this linear, very like clean chart. And the feminine way is that cycle where there's so much death and rebirth and like the expansion, the contraction, the inhale, the exhale, the tide rises and then the tide falls. And it's like in our society and as women, we don't get a lot of experience understanding that the exhale, that the contraction, that the death is okay,
Mm,
and that it's okay to actually like slow down and or even to let an old version of you die, right? Because if someone has so much of their identity wrapped up in survival and in that job that they don't like it, but it's what they do. I mean, I've definitely got family members who fall into that category, that's it's just the way that it is, you know? And so it takes a lot of courage and bravery to step out of that and to actually stop all of that external stimulus of what everyone else is telling you to do and what all of these companies and media companies are literally stealing our attention to keep us distracted, and to cut all of that noise and be like, who am I? And like, what am I here for? I mean, it's huge. So I just want to applaud you in like, you know, everything that has led up to your journey, all of those transformations and everything that you've endured and survived because you have survived, to get to this point now of like being able to show up online and speak your truth. We were just talking before the episode started about a video that you posted where you're starting to get some responses of people are saying maybe you should take that down, and like for you to be able to laugh about it, it takes a lot of work to get to that point. So take us into like what today looks like for you and how you have come to being able to express yourself so authentically and through your work and how you're helping other women as well.
mm. Today, I'm growing a brand. I'm growing a brand, just like you said, of me being just like unfiltered and being the voice that I think I would have loved to hear as a kid. I am
Yeah.
speaking on topics that I just always had this dream about, like being that voice of that little girl when I first got that diagnosis, to be her big sister and to be like,
Mm.
"Hey, whoa, 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 you're actually amazing. You're so wonderful. Don't worry. Don't worry. It's actually going to turn out great." So really being that, and I'm not particularly looking to build a specific audience. I'm just speaking about my experience because I just know that I don't see a lot of that. And it's funny because I didn't specifically choose to talk about periods. That's not the thing that I was like, I'm going to talk about that. But every time I do, those are the videos that just blow up. And here's my guess as to why that is because I have that background, of what I just shared with you, but I don't have the background of like the typical spiritual healer, embodied somatic coach from Austin. There's like a very specific archetype that I am not. And, I always really shameful of that. No, I
Mm.
was the damaged little Baltimore street rat that drank a lot. And I think that me being able to speak about like coming from such an extreme masculine and hurt place, learning about myself in my own way because I didn't know nobody was guiding me, and then speaking from that place, I'd like to think that there are so many women that are resonating with that because it's something that they can hear it. It's not coming from, the coach. It's coming from just me and what it is. And lately, I've been diving into coaching transformation work for the last few years, so I've been able to just kind of speak to it, and so the world
Mm.
is responding. Source, God, whatever it is, there's a channel happening that when I talk about that,
Yeah.
really seem to resonate with it. So I'm building a brand. I'm coaching. I had just finished a facilitator and speaker course. So I just did 6 months of like really intensive training to kind of like TEDx speaking style, works. We
Mhm.
just want to talk. I just love
Mm.
writing. And the way that some of my clients that I've worked with have told me, like over and over, like there's a channel, like there's a way that you speak to women that I hear that. And I'm like, this is something that I get to do. That
Mm.
I don't really care about what it is that people think of me. It's not, it's bigger than that. It's much bigger than that. I think
Mhm.
there's something that's happening through that. And so I've opened up like a coaching practice to have a community of women that are looking to, build something. And again, be on that same journey that I was of getting rid of the things that in your life that you're struggling to, survive through. I like
Mm.
my commitment is to support women in getting out of any kind of survival patterns because it's just like it's actually the first step is just taking that little leap. It's a little scary, but it's so doable.
Mhm. Mm. It all makes so much sense. Like, after hearing your story and what you're saying, I totally resonate with what you were saying, that you're the big sister. And we need more of that. We need the big sisters, we need the aunties, we need the guides. And I definitely see you as one of just showing that your story and just your lived experience, that actually is enough for you to be a leader. And I think people forget that sometimes, especially in Austin. I mean, I could speak for myself, where I'm just like, I need this next certification. I need this course. I love buying courses. I literally just buy so many courses and like don't even finish them. But it's like the real juice of what you have to offer comes from what you've actually lived through, and your story and the way that you articulated it today, it just painted the perfect picture of how you could help someone to break those patterns because you've done it yourself. You didn't take a course to learn how to do it. You actually have done it, and like that's all you need to do. And I just think, in the world of AI and everyone having every single answer at their fingertips, that there is a real value to being able to tell your story and to being able to communicate it and to bring the humanness of it. Um, because yeah, comparison I think is what keeps a lot of people from sharing their story and saying like my life doesn't look like theirs. Or here in Austin it's like sometimes I don't look like them, I don't have that wardrobe, so I can't be talking about this thing, no one's going to trust me, like that's what I've experienced, that for sure. I'm like, I'm not a priestess, like I can't talk about these things. I'm like, what even is a priestess? So it's just, I think that authenticity that you bring and the rawness and the realness is like what people are so craving. Like people don't want the perfect, polished, like AI captioned Instagram posts. They want you yapping away about your period, like which
And then like
they've
mad
already.
people in the comments.
Yeah. I know. It's wild. I mean, I'm so curious too about like that part of your journey of just connecting back to your femininity. Since you did have so much, I mean, carrying, you painted it perfectly, like 150 pounds, like straight up a mountain, guys are passing out. And like, you're like, holy shit, like you've got, you're masculine. I feel like you're very in touch with it. And was it hard to go on a journey of like softening a little bit and exploring what the more cyclical nature of being a woman can look like?
Mm. Yeah, for that'll be forever, right?
Yeah. Forever dying and being reborn.
It's a journey. It's funny too because when you met me, I was Sonia. I when I moved to California, I rebranded. I did a California rebrand in 2015, 16. And I
Mhm.
said, because in Russia, the names Sophia and Sonia are same. It's a synonymous. It's a nickname.
Okay.
I moved to
Mhm.
California. I said, everybody call me Sonia. And then I was Sonia for a good 8 years or so. And then as I was going through this most recent, kind of like stepping into myself as a woman, going through the personal development work, I was telling somebody how I'm on a journey to like claim more of my femininity and get a balance and just be more feminine. And somebody overheard me talking about it. They're like, "Isn't your name Sophia?" Like, it's like such a feminine name. And I was like, "Oh yeah, I totally forgot." And then I
Mm.
actually brought her back, and I'm Sophia now. This was in the last year, and that felt like so like biblical of like reclaiming this name, which is like Sophia is I'll have to read it, but it's the Sophia codes are about divine femininity. It's this book
Mm.
called the Sophia codes. It's about
My boyfriend's reading that right now.
yeah, and I was like, oh, that's so perfect how I got to do. So I call it Sonia was my spicy chapter
Wow.
of the badass Sonya Blade Mortal Kombat. Rah. And Sophia comes back, but from a place of like, I wasn't ready to be Sophia back then. I was just
Mm.
as in I didn't have the tools to be that version that like how do I say that? Like I wasn't set up for success in the moment. I had to
Mm.
go through my death. I had to go through all of those parts to then like fully integrate the Sophia that is today, which is it's so funny because people say all the time, they're like, "Oh, you're very feminine." Like I'm like, I love that. I get that compliment now. I'm like, I never used to.
Mm.
It was far from me. And
Mhm.
then I have a whole experience I have around my tattoos because I'm covered in them, full sleeve, all over my legs, all over my sides, my fingers, because that was the culture of firefighting was just like everybody's tattooed. And I loved
Right.
it because it was more of like this middle finger to everybody of like, I'm bad. I'm a bad girl. You can't touch me. Like I have chaos tattooed on my leg.
Oh,
It
wow.
was just like this badge of honor that I used to hold. And so as I step into this iteration of myself, that's the part that's like so interesting because I have these things that are like all display on me. Because the post that somebody told me to take down today was just these pictures of me when I was 16, where I'm like, a little hood rat. He's
Mhm.
like, yeah, I don't know, maybe we should take those down. And I was like, those are the parts that I'm hiding because I was so scared of people seeing that part of me. But I can hide them. I can just be like, delete them off Facebook. But like, there's just so much of me that's fully on display that like the
Mm.
woman that I emanate is just, like I'm so excited about the groundedness that I get to really step into. And I'm wearing every single part of me out on display of like my past, as is how I see the tattoos.
Yeah. What would you say to a woman listening who maybe has parts of her past that she's ashamed of or, wants to hide?
Yeah, there's no timeline for you having to, make peace with those things.
Mm,
And the heaviness is as much as you put on it. And that we are so capable of reclaiming our sovereignty, our power, our healing in a decision. There's so much power in a choice of, yes, that happened to my body, but who I am, who I be today is my choice in every moment.
mm,
And
mhm.
that you don't have to be a victim if you don't want to be. You can be a survivor, you can be a badass, you can be anything that you want with that decision. And that all comes in time. And talking about it, shedding light, finding community,
Yeah.
being exposed in it in a place that you feel safe can be, a straight shot to some of that healing. Never thought I
Mhm.
would have been able to talk about those things on a podcast. But it's one of those things that, you know what? I remember thinking when I was a kid, once I came through with this diagnosis, that was a filter for me. Because then if somebody were to say, because I dated throughout my whole life, and I would tell people up until I found out at 24 that it was a false diagnosis, but it was a filter for people.
Mm,
Oh,
mhm.
well, this is who I am. This is part of my past. And they're like, oh, well, I don't care. I'm like, oh, that really says something,
Yeah.
that you're really choosing me for me.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, you mentioned having safety in sharing and having the right people in your world. And I know that you are launching
Mhm.
a container coming up in May. And I'd love for you to tell our listeners a little bit more about that and also just how to connect with you in general.
Yeah, thanks, Taylor. I'm excited. It's Divine Discipline. That's my program,
Mm,
which I bring women on to get them set up with, if they're finding balance between, I need support with creating more structure in my life. I have a hard time following through. That's something that I bring in to support women in like getting big goals off the ground and having a community, having accountability, but then teaching you how to be consistent in your life. And so I have a very structured method. I've run several cohorts so that people can develop like skills and habits that stick with you well past you work with me. 3 month
mm,
container, you're in a community of other women to have the accountability. And then once you finish, I mean, you then are given those tools to know that you can create those big things, right? Get away from those survival patterns and trust yourself, build something for yourself and
mm,
thrive. That's what I want. That's what I want for everyone
mm.
that I work with.
Yeah. Beautiful. I bet your 16-year-old self would have never imagined the life that you're living today and what you're doing and how you're helping other people. And yeah, it's really amazing. And I'm just so honored to have gotten to hear your story because I think it really just ties it all together of what you're bringing to the world and why people are so magnetized to it right now. Um, it's like even if you're not sharing all of that on an Instagram post, it's like that voice that comes from you. It's been shaped by all of those experiences, right?
Mm.
It's been shaped by the party raver, reckless child, and the AmeriCorps employee, and the firefighter, and now, coaching and teaching women to break these patterns that maybe have existed for generations. And it's really an honor to get to hear your story. I'm super inspired by it. And I think it just brings to light the importance of sharing our truth and sharing where we come from because even though our stories aren't the same, like there's so many little pieces that I'm like, oh, like that I had an experience really similar to that and like makes me feel a little bit less alone in, what my own life experience was. And I think others are going to feel that way as well.
Mm.
So thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah, thank you, Taylor. Oh, this was such a treat to get to be interviewed
Yeah.
by you, a muse.
Yes. And if people want to connect with you further, is Instagram is the best
Totally.
route for you right now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Website is
Awesome. I'll link that below.
SophiaEfremova.com, or just even linking on Instagram. Check the
Okay.
DMs.
Awesome. Well, I'll have all of Sophia's information in the show notes and linked here. So be sure to check out her program that is launching in just a few weeks, probably really soon from the time this episode is released. So check out her website and follow her on Instagram and just, be along for the journey. I will say your content is so entertaining, and I stop every single time I see that you've posted something to tune in and watch. So I'm like, what is she going to say next? And I really admire your unfilteredness. I'm working on my own. And so thank you for being an inspiration to me.
Thank you, Taylor.
Yeah, it's so great chatting with you.